He's here, everybody, as he is each and every Monday, joining us for a conversation about all things baseball, all things Mariners. He's with us on the Emerald Queen Casino Sportsbook Hotline. Look at him. You know him. You love him. Our buddy Ryan Rowland-Smith. How are you, man?
I'm fantastic. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. Doing great. That's a winning road trip. You take 6 of 10 and want to get your take on everything that happened there. But we were just talking about Bryan Woo in the last segment. 16 starts, all 6 innings or more. Only guy in baseball to do it. If I asked you at the beginning of the season, before the season started, and I said, of the 5 starters, who are you most concerned with their durability? Who would you say is most likely to suffer an injury out of the 5? Because for me, it would have been Woo, and I was as high on Woo as anybody, but based on his history, that would have been my choice.
Right. Yeah, I feel like, it was always Bryan Woo, Bryce Miller. It's like, can you get him through a 6-month season? And I think, Bryce kind of showed that last year, able to do his thing. But with Bryan Woo, it was a situation where, look, he's been great, but he hasn't shown that you can get from April through to September. And by the way, look, he still hasn't either, right? But,
right.
Everything you're watching, though, with him, and you look at little things, like especially looking through from a pitcher's lens with the way, whether it's mechanically speaking, whether it's, if he's throwing a bunch of breaking balls, if there's a drop-off in velocity, if all of a sudden he goes to secondary pitches a ton in high-stress situations. And he really doesn't. All those things are really, you can kind of check the box to say there's really, knock on wood, nothing to say that there's a little bit of a stress factor on him in any of these starts. And look, the fact that he's just getting deep in games, and that's been the biggest inconsistency with this Mariners rotation. It's been really consistent overall, but when you pull it apart, it's like, man, the what we're so used to seeing in 23 and 24 was them getting deep into games, and he's been that one guy able to do that. Everyone else has been, whether it's been times on the IL or that 5-inning start or that 100 pitches in 5 innings, whatever it may be, but he's avoided all that. He's been brilliant, man. He's been unbelievable.
What about some of the intangibles with him, Ryan? We were talking about how just like his ferocity and just his confidence. I mean, and I was kind of like that. I mean, it took probably till my 3rd year to this is my job, and have that kind of confidence and, just being on top of it. Have you seen those kinds of little things with Woo as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's, this rotation overall, you got to remember too, they're all still so young in their careers, right? And you kind of go through these stages where you first get to the big leagues, whether there's hype on you or there's not, you get to the big leagues and you want to prove that you're not just someone filling a gap or, hey, you could have potential. You want to prove that you're an established major league starter. You want to prove that, you can push me in that 85th pitch onwards in a tough spot in the 6th inning, and you don't have to go to the bullpen because I'm your best option. And also, too, let's not forget, he gives up that home run to Seager, and what does he do after that? So you watch some of these little things, and I think he's well beyond that stage of obviously having to prove himself. But I think now he's establishing himself to be that, that guy that when teams come into town, it's like, man, do we have Bryan Woo on the last game of this series? Or, man, do we have to, go through a Bryan Woo where he's just going to attack us in the strike zone and essentially speed us up and get deep? It's going to be a 1 or 2-3 run in this outing. So I think he's gotten to that point. And honestly, guys, looking at the way, this All-Star, everyone's talking about the All-Star game and the voting and everything else. I feel like he's kind of on that fence in regards to it's him and a few other guys that you could maybe get one of those last spots. I just think there was that little stretch there where he gave up 3 runs, then 4 runs, then I think it was a 5-run outing. That kind of, man, that little bit of a bump in the road cost him his first All-Star game. That's kind of the level he's at. And so it's exciting to see, especially at his age.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. I mean, he's got an ERA of 2.93 at this point, despite blowups, and he's been fantastic. What was your I'm looking at that road trip going, it's a success. You took 6 of 4, yet there's kind of mixed feelings coming out of it. You look at the last 5 games. They had 3 quality starts in those 5 games. They only won 1 of those. The offense just went dead. Even in the Emerson Hancock game, the final was 10-1. He gave you 5 innings and gave up 2 runs. So he did what he normally does. He gives you 5 or 6 and allows 2 runs, gives you a chance to win. That one got blown up because of Zach Pop went out there and exploded. But I mean, what do you make of the Jekyll and Hyde nature of this offense?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, especially in that Texas Rangers series, right, on the weekend, you got Nathan Eovaldi who's coming back from the IL, so it's going to be like a short outing. There's no way he's going to be like, hey, I need 6 rehab outings. He's going to want to come right back. So you look at that and go, all right, great. Now what we can do is chip in to that bullpen, and that's a weak link for the Texas Rangers in regards to putting up some runs in those middle innings. And it was a situation where you talk about the offense where it just, man, when it really counted and they needed that hit, it was lacking a little bit. Then the next couple days, you've got Kumar Rocker, who literally he pitched on one side of the plate, which you look at that and say, man, okay, if he's going to pitch, if he's going to pitch on that side of the plate, you can really sort of eliminate half the plate, but they just couldn't quite get to him. And then the last game against Jack Leiter, another guy who's been struggling, man, you look at him, man, he made a lot of mistakes, and they just couldn't put him over the edge. So there was those little things when you look at that a little bit concerning. But look, overall, you said it, man. This road trip was really successful in some tough conditions with some rain, extra innings, wore out the bullpen, and still be able to walk away on that Sunday. I know Texas wore out their bullpen too, but to walk away on Sunday when they were running on fumes with that bullpen, man, it speaks volumes. So I think it was as tough as it was, a lot of long days at the park. It was, you walk away from that, I'd say glass half full.
Can you tell those guys to pipe down back
who's
there?
the meathead in the back there?
You guys are –
well, that's my fault. It's my fault because I don't have my headphones on me, and I messed up. I didn't get the radio booth prepped to have my favorite 15 minutes of the week. So that's my fault. It's all on me.
His favorite 15 minutes. We love it. Hey, give us a little preview. Looks like Kansas City. They've got wit. I mean, they have some good players, no question. Yeah. But and pretty good pitching. But yeah, they offensively they're struggling a little bit.
Yeah, offensively, there's not that bat in the middle of the lineup, and this has been for them the last couple of years. They just don't, for whatever reason, just that power, lacking that power. And they've got Caglione. I can't wait to watch him playing in right field. He could be that power threat, but he's not quite there yet. But you don't have that big power threat. But man, they've been struggling. So this is a big opportunity. One thing I'd love to see tonight, with George Kirby. I'm going to talk about this during the game as well. One pitcher he's lost, and I spoke to Pete Woodworth about trying to find it again.
Splitter.
That split. I've spoke to you guys about that pitch. So he started throwing a changeup just as a bit of a workaround. But I'm dying to see if there's been something in the last couple of days where he's found maybe some little mechanical cue where he can get back to that pitch. Because, man, some of these lefties in the Royals lineup, regardless of what they're doing or what they're doing offensively, this is that moment where you can say, you know what, I'm going to get 10 to 15 of these pitches in game speed and get this pitch back because he can be on another level. And I really think George Kirby is going to be an X factor in the second half of the season if he can get something that goes away to lefties and that pitcher gets to the below the strike zone with depth to righties too. I think he really needs that. He's missing that. So I want to see that from him tonight as well.
How often would that happen with you where you just lose your feel for a pitch? Like, man, I had this thing mastered. I could count on a splitter, and now I can't land it. I mean, because I was watching, because you pointed it out, in his last start, I was looking for it, and he hardly threw it at all. And when he did, it wasn't to great effect.
And if you notice too, Bob, there's a couple early in the game, and I was watching. He tried it, and he's like, no, not happening. So you get to game speed, and the games count. It's on a bullpen session. If you don't have it, you don't have it. It happens all the time, and it happened to me a bunch, obviously. It's not. And this is what gets me. If you haven't pitched, or you haven't pitched for a while, like I haven't, sometimes you just kind of expect that these guys can just, be perfect down and away, or they don't have it, or what's wrong. That's happens so much, and you have to sometimes fight your way to get it in 2 or 3 innings, and then by the fourth, man, boom, I found it. But guess what? I'm 60, 70 pitches deep, and all of a sudden, there's different situations that determine that I can't go to that pitch, right? And so it happens all the time. Even the best guys you watch in the game, and I'll put George Kirby up there, man. When he's on, man, he's one of the toughest because you can combine the stuff with the command. but it happens so much. And sometimes, look, I'm guilty of it too. I walk away and go, I expect these guys to be robots and just be able to dominate that one area of the plate when they don't have that pitch.
But when that happens, though, do you find that it's more of a mental thing, like I don't have confidence, or is it mechanical, like my grip, I'm gripping it different, my stride is, because everything's so precise in your delivery that if one little thing mechanically is off, obviously it impacts the outcome of that pitch. So would you say it's more mental, or do you think it's a mechanical thing?
I think it goes both ways, right? In other words, sometimes you don't have it early, or in the bullpen session, you're working on something, you don't quite have that confidence in it. And so mentally, you can just shut it down. But mechanically, sometimes, man, it can take you second. You don't have time at this level. Second inning, third inning, you're still trying to find that good depth on that breaking ball, whatever it is. And so the mechanical side then seeps into the mental side. Then all of a sudden, you got that runner on second in the fifth, sixth inning, and you don't want to go to that pitch because you've just spent the last hour and a half trying to find it. Even though you may have it mentally, I'm not convicted in that pitch. And so it kind of goes both ways, but man, it can really throw you sideways when everything feels good and you don't have that one out pitch or that one option, especially, if it's for George Kirby to lefties, man. And that lefty comes up in that spot and you're just like, what, I have to go to plan B, plan C to get this guy out. And hopefully that plan B, plan C is pretty dominant. And most of these guys at this level, it is, but it comes down to being confident and going to that option.
Hey, Ryan, I want to ask you about a couple of the guys that, kind of chimed in yesterday, which is always good to see, like a guy like Miles Mastroboni make a couple of plays that wins a game for you. And then Garver is just, it's always been kind of interesting to me. It looks like it's the every other year for him. If you look at his batting average, he went 207, then 270, then 172, and now he's back up to 227. But where do you, of those guys, tell us about Garver. Like, do you think he can be a consistent contributor, or is he going to be a guy that just every once in a while shows up?
Track record wise, and you mentioned the odd years. In other words, 2023. Look at what he did in 2023. Now, I was actually about to sit here before the game and go through some tendencies in 2023 compared to 2024. One thing I noticed with him in 24 was last year, and it seeped into this year, and he kind of adjusted a little bit. He was just so patient, way too patient, and it is so tough to hit when you're deep in the counts and you're facing two strikes. And so, looking back at 2023, were there times where he picked his spots and said, you know what, I'm jumping on this 0-0. I don't care if I'm going to get a secondary pitch or something that's tough to hit. I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to be aggressive on the first pitch or first couple pitches. I've noticed that with him when he sort of turned the corner this year, he just swinging the bat more, just purely swinging the bat. And I don't know what happened with him last year or in the beginning of this year where he wanted to have that approach, where he wanted to be more patient or on base. He was in his head about that, or some of the off the field things. We know he would put a lot of pressure on himself. But I just think, man, he's so talented. He's a big leaguer. Signed for a lot of money. It's in there. He had a really good playoff, so that tells you he can play when the game's on the line and it's those clutch moments or high leverage, with the heart rate's up. So, you know what? Let it eat, man. Swing that bat, dude. With all that being said, and by the way, too, this is going to sound absolutely off the wall crazy, and I was on the road with him, but I want to get down there. I do want to throw this his way. Sometimes when you have like a little injury or you get taken under the jaw, it can distract you enough where your mind is not so fixated in being perfect or living up to this or living up to that. Your focus is purely on, I'm sure, Dave, you dealt with this with injuries when you were carrying while you were playing.
Yeah.
When your focus is, okay, look, I've got this injury. I'm just going to try and slug it out, man. I'm just going to try and survive here. All of a sudden, you get way more present. And so I was thinking about this when you got hit in the jaw and he didn't hit the IL. Sometimes when you're carrying some sort of little niggling injury or something, you can get a little bit more sort of hyper-focused on more of the just nothing to lose. I'm just going up, as opposed to this big. You know what I'm saying?
Totally agree.
It's something crazy, and I know it sounds wild, but that's something I'm going to throw his way when I see him down on the field this afternoon when I get a chance to talk to these guys.
Just looking at this team coming out of that 10-game road trip, again, success. You win 6 of 10, that's success. But we saw a hole. You saw flaws. Did anything change in your opinion as to what they need to do at the trade deadline, how they need to address this team? I'm looking at the infield, Ryan, going, I love the young guys. I love Cole Young. I love Williamson, played tremendous defense. But the reality is you're not getting production from any of your infield spots other than catcher. That's the reality. And in second base, you don't count on it. You count on it from your corner spots. You're just not. So I'm looking at that going, okay, that they need to bring in a bat that addresses the infield lack of production, and I'd love to see an arm in the bullpen, some middle relief. But what about you? Did anything change for you in terms of what you think the priority should be?
I still think I thought this a week ago. I'll say it again too. I still feel like you need to fill up. It's going to be the boring answer, and you can eye roll this. You still have to fill up that middle part of the bullpen. And if you had a situation, and look, I agree with you. Look, offensively, a little bit more slug at the corners, a little bit more thump. That threat in the middle of the lineup, 100% go for it. But just looking around, there's a lot of starting pitching out there. There's the corner infield spots, or that, call it a rental, call it a impact bat in the middle lineup. It's going to be competitive to get that. It really is. I'm not saying that's why they should shy away. I agree with you in that regard. I just still feel like, man, that this team, when it's all said and done, look back and say, all right, the pitching is good. It's not getting as deep as it did last year. And the bullpen, man, there is just that situation. And they dealt with this last year too at the end of the year, and they missed out by a couple games. If you can get, call it two arms in that fill up that sixth, seventh, and eighth inning, you've got a Munoz, Matt Brash, and someone else who is that frontline arm that can basically have closer stuff, has closer experience, and he's filling up that eighth, and he can be dependable in regards to going 3 days in a row, and you don't have to work around that. That takes the pressure off Matt Brash as well, who's been brilliant, takes the pressure off Gabe Spire, and you don't have to rely so heavily on a Vargas, for example, that you're still trying to figure out. That, I'm telling you right now, that'll just stabilize what is going to get this team to that next level. But I agree with you. Yep, they need offense, but I still think priority number one, if they fill up that bullpen and get that good 5 to 6 from the rotation, that's going to put them in a good spot.
Hey, real quick, when I was a player?
By the way, Bob does not like that answer at all.
No,
I know that because I know you want offense.
Well, no, but I said when I asked you the question, I said I think they need a bullpen arm.
Yeah.
It's not my priority, but they need it. Right. I agree with you.
Yeah, we love guys from the bullpen. Love it. Got to have more of them.